Jay here, Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, we're live in the studio. Get involved in the chat and the comments. Going to be talking about all the latest Manchester United news, including a shock story that's come out this morning about Marcus Rashford potentially going to St James's Park, Newcastle, in case you're wondering what I'm talking about. Yeah, he could be going there. So we're going to get into all that. Also, we're going to be looking at the usual suspects in terms of incomings. Are we going to get Brian Mbeumo? Is that deal going to get over the line? What's happening with Hugo Ekitike? Is there any movement there? Also, are there any other transfer stories, any outgoings too? So make sure you are joining in with all that conversation and hitting that like button as well, please. People, good to see a lot of the usual faces in the chat as well. Steve M, Maurice Marshall, I am Lipo, Robert Tater, some new ones as well. Patrick Melia says I would be surprised move. It would be a surprise move to see him leave and go to Newcastle. I'd rather see him leave the Premier League, to be honest. Talking about Marcus Rashford, yeah, it was a bit of a surprise story, that, to be honest with you. Glenn Effie's here, Mick Holohan's here, BMW Racing 1974. Good to see all you guys in there. Let's talk about Marcus Rashford then, because we saw this doing the rounds this morning. A few papers. I think we've got it here from the Express, although it's been featured in a few other publications as well. And it says Newcastle United are reportedly ready to offer Marcus Rashford a lifeline back into the Champions League. The Manchester United striker's days at Old Trafford seem numbered, but his options are limited. Barcelona was believed to be Rashford's preferred choice, but the Spanish Giants have been scouting other players. Nico Williams and Luis Diaz are top of their list. I'm going to have more on that Nico Williams story in a minute, with the Athletic Club star appearing to be the front runner at present. Rashford shone during his loan spell at Aston Villa. I think his loan spell, was it something like four goals, 6 assists in about 14 games, whatever it was. So it was a decent loan spell. He did have some good performances. I don't think it was an amazing one, but it was decent. The only shame for him was he got injured. Anyway, it says here, however, a return to Villa Park seems improbable after Unai Emery's team narrowly missed out on Champions League qualification on the season's final day, ironically, at Old Trafford. It was Newcastle who clinched the Premier League's last Champions League place, edging out Villa on goal difference. A little bit more to this story, I think. Now, according to The Sun, hashtag don't buy The Sun. We will never put The Sun on the screen, but it's not just The Sun reporting this. A few other papers are as well, although you might want to take it with a pinch of salt if it's come from them. The Magpies might be the ones to give Rashford another crack at European football. However, things may not be entirely straightforward. Newcastle are seeking a season-long deal, while his current club would favour a permanent transfer after reaching an agreement to part ways this summer. There you can see the stats that I mentioned. It was actually 17 appearances, forgive me, not 16 or 14, I think is what I said. 2 of those goals were scored in the Premier League as Emery's side pushed for a top 5 finish, but he was sidelined for the final few matches of the season due to a hamstring injury. Listen, everyone knows what Marcus Rashford did at Aston Villa. Everyone knows why he's not going back to Aston Villa. It certainly doesn't look like he is. The question is, can United get money for him? Ideally, we want to sell Marcus Rashford. He should be a saleable asset. We should be able to get 40 million quid for Marcus Rashford. I know he's not exactly had the greatest 2 seasons, but he is a player that scored over 100 goals. He scored 20 plus goals in 3 different seasons, including one season where he got 30 goals as well in all competitions. He's an exciting player. When he's on it, he's up there with anyone in the world when he's on it. So you can understand why players teams will be looking at him, and you'd think that Manchester United would be able to move him on. The big problem, the issue, is his wages. He's on ridiculously large wages. I think he's on about 350k a week in wages. That might have gone down now. We've not got Champions League qualification. I think that's tied into it. But he's still on a lot of money. Even without the Champions League bonus, if you can call it that, he's still going to be on more than most clubs would pay any player. Most clubs have a limit of like 180, 200k tops. I think even Chelsea's limit is around that. So for Marcus Rashford to get a move and to keep the wages he's on is unlikely. Now, maybe Newcastle, him going there on loan, United eat up some of his wages, Newcastle eat up the rest. It's similar deal to what Aston Villa did. Would that make sense? Does that free up enough money for Manchester United to make it palatable? I don't think it does. I think you need to sell Marcus Rashford. I said this about 1 or 2 other players as well, the likes of Jadon Sancho, the likes of Antony, Marcus Rashford, Alejandro Garnacho. We need to move them on. We need to get some money in for them so we can buy some new players. So I'm not overly enamoured of this idea, to be honest with you. Him go to Newcastle, I'd prefer he went out of the Premier League, but I can live with it. Him go to Newcastle on a loan move, it just feels a little bit like counterproductive. Let me know what you think. Some people may question it. You can go, Anthony Gordon is already on the left-hand side. They've obviously got Alexander Isak down the middle. Do they need Marcus Rashford? I think if you are going into the Champions League, you'd want options. And I don't think it's a bad thing having Marcus Rashford in your squad. But are you going to pay 250 grand or whatever it is, however much of his wages you're going to pay for that privilege? We'll have to wait and see. Let me know what you think. Martin Yates says, if Marcus goes to Newcastle, it must be a sale, not a loan. It's important that we move on and we build from that. I agree with that completely. I think we need to make some sales. I said this the other week. I said the massive issue this summer, everyone's fixated on incomings, and I understand it. I'm guilty as that as everyone. You want to see new players coming in. You want to be like, oh yeah, we've got Cunha, we've got Mbeumo, we've got whoever. But the big issue is moving on players. We need to shift on some of these players, because if you go into the next season and you've got Jadon Sancho still in the dressing room, Marcus Rashford still in the dressing room, both probably not wanting to be there, that can affect the team in a negative way. Not to mention the fact they're eating up all these wages. Not to mention the fact that we haven't sold them has meant you can't buy other players as well. I think Ineos, if they want to earn their money, they need to make deals to move these players on. And you should be able to sell them. You should be able to find buyers for the likes of Marcus Rashford, for the likes of Anthony, for the likes of Alejandro Garnacho, and for the likes of Jadon Sancho. Now, there was a story yesterday that we ran about maybe Anthony going back to Real Betis as this sort of rent-to-buy scheme, like it's, trying to get on the property ladder, where I think it'd be like a part ownership deal. I don't know if that's going to work. I think that would see United get 17 million in, which is not great, but it's better than now. However, with Marcus Rashford, we're not seeing the clamour from clubs to buy Marcus Rashford. And I think part of the issue there is his wages. Another issue there is there's a little bit of noise around Marcus Rashford, isn't there? Is he completely happy? Is he living his life the way he should be? I'm not saying he isn't. I'm just saying there is a little bit of noise, isn't there? The trip to Belfast hurt his sort of reputation a little bit. A few questions around him, maybe in general, as he fell off a little bit. And I think the move to Villa was good rather than great. I think he did well there to a certain degree, but it wasn't Jesse Lingard at West Ham, or Anthony at Real Betis. It wasn't like, wow, oh my gosh, he's absolutely smashed it, let's all get him. He did quite well, but there's still probably enough of a doubt there for many clubs to go in for him. I'm getting some of the chat and the comments, and then I've got another Marcus Rashford, a couple more sort of sides to this story. Let me know what you think. Steve M, Rashford and Sancho will end up getting loaned out every year for the rest of their contracts and then leave for free. Do you know what? Stranger things have happened. You might laugh at that, but that's not a bad point, because it could happen that way. Jadon Sancho isn't staying at Chelsea. There's talk that maybe he could go to Napoli, but they're unwilling to pay the 25 million quid that Manchester United want. And also with Jadon Sancho, me and Joe were talking about this last night on the Transfers Live. Maybe if there's a sort of thing in the back of his mind, if I do another loan till my contract runs out, I can then move on a free and get mega money from my wages because I'm a free transfer. Let me know what you think. There's lots of ifs and buts and maybes on that one. Bizarre says wages too high on all of them. I agree. Akash K says, I feel another loan is the only option for Marcus here. As long as Newcastle pays his wages in full, I'm happy. Salford Red says, yes, Jay, the Brookhouse and Mbeumo. Not wrong with Brookhouse, but I'm not from Brookhouse. Lewis says, it's just a case of kicking the can down the road with Rashford until his contract runs out. I don't think anyone will sign him for a fee. EAFC Dad, welcome to the Academy. Good to see you joining the members. We've got extra member content on the members section. Kevin Aitchison says, I want to see Rashford sparking up the pipe with Scott in Napoli. Yeah, there was a little joke that me and Joe had there about smoking crack when you've won the Scudetto. We're not advocating that, by the way, for anyone. Lee Stretchy Cat Thompson says, we don't want to need him. I think you talk about Marcus. We don't need Marcus Rashford to a certain degree. Certainly not this version of Marcus Rashford. It is better that he moves on, but I just thought we'd get a permanent deal. I think we've got another story here on Marcus Rashford, a swap deal. So, according to reports, Manchester United would sanction Marcus Rashford's move to Barcelona, but they want a player in return. Rashford's future is up in the air after he returned to form during his loan spell at Aston Villa. I think there's a little bit more here. The Man United forward had limited options in January due to his poor form and huge salary, but Villa took a punt on the England international after selling John Duran to Al Nassr. That it's been widely reported that he could, or that he favours a move to Barcelona. United, according to these guys, would want a swap deal. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think Marcus Rashford is going to be part of a swap deal with anyone from Barcelona. There's talk here, Ronald Araujo emerging as an unexpected option. Don't see it. There's another story here that ties in with this on Nico Williams. I think this is from Romano. Nico Williams and Barca have agreed personal terms on a 6-year deal. Agreement sealed on players' contracts until June 2031, with the salary in the region of €8 million net per season, or €7 million net per season. Barca are currently working on financial terms to get the deal done with Athletic. Feels like that's moving forward. Feels like that's about to happen. So where does that leave Marcus Rashford? Are Barcelona going to buy Nico Williams and Marcus Rashford? I seriously doubt it. Let me know what you think. Get involved in the chat in the comments. There's a lot of scepticism with both of these stories, isn't there? Or both of these rumours in terms of him going to Barcelona and in terms of him going to Newcastle. They kind of make sense in a way, but it's the numbers, man. It's the money, innit? What's going to happen? Santa Notch in the chat. I can genuinely imagine Sancho, Rashford, Antony, Shaw and Mount all have their contracts run down and we get nothing for any of them. Dramatic? Question. I just hope to be proven wrong. That's not beyond the realms of possibility. It isn't. Like, look, there's an issue with all of them, isn't there? With Mason Mount, it's his injuries. It looks like he's going to stay at United. How much is he going to feature next season? I'm not sure. He might do, but the front three might end up being Mbomo, Ahmad and Cunha. Or we might bring in another striker, or it might be Xerxes, Ahmad and Cunha. Or Mbomo, Ahmad and Xerxes. You think Cunha's going to start. We just bought him for 62 million quid. So he's going to take one of those spots. If we buy Brian Mbomo, he's going to be part of that front three. Then that leaves one space for maybe for Mason Mount, maybe it's not, maybe it's for Ahmad, maybe it's for someone else. We'd have to wait and see. So there's a good chance Mason Mount is not surplus to requirements, but perhaps doesn't get the amount of game time that he wants or that he's transfer warranted. So I don't know what his future's going to hold. You look at Luke Shaw, been injured for pretty much the last 2 seasons, barring the end of last season. What's the future hold for him? Is anyone going to come in for an injury-prone player? Probably not. He's on big money. I think he's got 2 years left on his deal, if not a bit longer. So there's no chance of him going anytime soon. You look at Antony. I think he's probably the one most likely to leave because of the spell he had at Real Betis and how successful it was. The issue is they're not going to pay the money that Manchester United want, or they can't pay the money that Manchester United want. And that ties in with the fact Manchester United massively overspent on him. So even though, if Antony had just come through the academy, you might go to Real Betis and go, just give us 20 million, you can have him, or 15 million, you can just have him, it's all profit. But it isn't. So that's an issue there. Marcus Rashford I've already spoken about. Jadon Sancho I've already spoken about. The issues there regarding wages and the fact that some of these loan spells have been all right, but they haven't been amazing. Jadon Sancho's loan spell at Dortmund a couple of seasons ago was decent. I was going to say very decent. Was decent. Got to the Champions League final. Very good against PSG in that semi-final first leg. However, it wasn't amazing. His loan spell at Chelsea was all right, but he had like 15 games in the middle of it where he didn't get a goal or an assist. I know he scored in the Europa Conference final, but it wasn't an amazing loan spell where clubs go, yes, let's get him in, especially with those wages. That is the big issue, the wages. Please hit the like button, and if you're not doing so already, subscribe to the channel. We smashed through the 800,000 mark. Just as soon as I said that, someone unsubscribes. That's not how you do it. Subscribe, not unsubscribe. Let's talk about Alejandro Garnacho. Man United are hoping for a bidding war for one-away winger Alejandro Garnacho this summer. Sources have told Football Insider. You can take this with a little bit of a pinch of salt. It's good to talk about Alejandro Garnacho, though, as well, because it looks like there's going to be some interest in him this summer. He was linked with Chelsea in January. He was linked with Napoli in January. Are either of those 2 clubs going to come in for him? I think they could do. I wouldn't be surprised, right? This is maybe just call it a hunch, or some of the stories we've seen, if he actually ends up at Chelsea. I could see him going there. I could see them buying him. Rio Ferdinand did something this morning where he's like, Chelsea's PSR stature or their standing is quite strong. So they have got the ability somehow to spend money on players. And I wouldn't be surprised if they came in for Garnacho. 20 years old, played a lot of Premier League football, is a very exciting player. I know he's fell off a bit, and I know his performances haven't been great for Manchester United this season, but he's still got quite a few goals and assists. I think he's got more goals and assists than almost anyone under the age of 21, I think. So he's still quite productive, and I think there's clubs out there that would take a punt on him. And also, his wages won't be ridiculous. He's not on like 250k a week. Plus the fact, for United's point of view, it's all profit. He's an academy player. So if we sell him for 45 million, that's like selling Jadon Sancho for 80 million or whatever. It's profit. So it'd be a lot more attractive to Manchester United to move Garnacho on for maybe a little bit less than he's worth. I actually think we should be able to sell Garnacho for over 50 million quid. I believe that. I do. And people might laugh at that and go, Jay, what are you talking about? He's not scored out in the Premier League goals this season. He's not good. He's 20 years old. He's played, nearly 150 games at the top level. He scores quite a lot of goals and assists for someone his age. Look at the other deals that have been done around the world for players with less pedigree than him, who aren't as good as him. Look at what the sort of money and the transfer fees that clubs get for players who've played a handful of Premier League games. Look at what Garnacho has done. Look at what he's capable of as well. This is a guy that won the Puskas Award a couple of seasons ago. He's a very, very talented player, and he's 20 years old. And he's got that strange mix of being young and having loads of experience. Now, I'm not going to pretend his time at Manchester United has been rosy. There's a reason he's going to go, and we're going to sell him. But he's still a very, very exciting, talented young player who could cause problems for any defence. I think we should be getting upwards of 50 million for him. Let me know what you think. Get involved in the chat in the comments. I hate it when I just see all these transfers flying around, and United are going to end up probably getting Dan James money for him. Donny Blackburn says it's his attitude. His attitude isn't great. We're not going to pretend it isn't. But sometimes a move can help as well. If you're not happy at a club, if things aren't working out well for you at a club, you can move to a different club, and all of a sudden those attitude problems that you had, or that mindset issue that you had, changes. We've seen it so many times with players who clubs just can't get a tune out of him, or they've fallen out of the manager, or you just go, oh, it's not really happening for him. They go to a different club, and all of a sudden everything's great. Everything works out. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Adam Kenny says, if Garnacho was at Frankfurt, he'd be over 100 million. This is sort of thing, I don't know 100 million, but if he was playing for Dortmund, clubs would be happy to spend 60 million quid on him. They would. It's just because he's at Manchester United and we sell players really cheaply that it's this sort of thing, just get something for him. And PSR, he's come through the academy, let's just get him in. No, let's just get rid of him, sorry. Let's try and get a decent amount of money for him. And if it is all profit, then we can reinvest it in some players, hopefully. Let's talk about Martinez. Emi Martinez. This is from, where's this from, sorry?
It's a Spanish outlet.
A Spanish outlet, eh? There you go. It's not for Hages or Fishasis. They're banned from this channel, by the way. If anyone didn't see it on Transfers Live. For Hages, sometimes they get things right just by luck, but they are terrible. It says first formal contact between Manchester United and DB Martinez to become a reinforcement. I think this might have been through some sort of translate. The Red Devils have begun to make direct contact with the world champion goalkeeper, who intends to continue living in England. The other inquiries he received details. Yeah, it feels very much sort of this has been sort of put through the old translate. Look, I wanted to talk about Martinez because there's been a few reports that he's keen on a move to Manchester United. We had this from a few weeks ago that it was potentially an option. There have been more updates though that Ruben Amorim is willing to stick with Andre Onana. I'm just curious where this is going to go because part of me feels that we could end up getting Emi Martinez in because if you're going to buy in all the new players, get your attack sorted, can you rely on the goalkeeper that we've got at a minute? Probably not. However, there has to be a limit to how many things you change, and there is a lot of noise that actually Ruben Amorim is willing to sort of stick with Andre Onana. Be interesting to see what happens with this one. It's kind of like these feel like tentative talks. The sort of there is a little bit of a dialogue going on. I don't know what his wages look like. I don't know if this is a move that Manchester United and Ruben Amorim will be keen on. He is, 32? So he's quite young still for a goalkeeper. He's just got one in him, hasn't he? We saw it at Old Trafford at the end of last season where he literally got a red card, which, not for nothing, but it was the last thing he should have been doing, was doing what he did. And he's always got that in him. Is he a better goalkeeper than Andre Onana? I said this before. Yes, I think he is. But he's still a problem. Let me know what you think. Yeah, Chris Griffith says, bring on the sacrifices. Yeah, there was this going on Transfers Live last night. We talk about, there's a headline about, or a story about Marcus Rashford willing to sacrifice his wages or something. Wayne Davis in the chat as well. Andy Armstrong says, a Spanish outlet, you mean a bloke in a bar in Benidorm? Yes. Sometimes I don't sort of dismissing all the Spanish newspapers by any stretch of imagination, but sometimes it does feel as though a lot of these stories from Spanish outlets are just made up. Let's talk about the fixtures. I know we had this yesterday. I saw this, right? This is in the Mirror. It says, Man United continue ridiculous Premier League record as Manchester City pay the penalty. I always love a story that tries to paint Manchester City as some sort of victims. It says, Premier League fixtures for 25-26 have been released and United have continued a quirky run on the opening day as they take on Arsenal and Old Trafford. Scroll down, go back to that, and Old Trafford. So poor, right? Yeah, so they take on Arsenal and Old Trafford. I know you could say, well, actually, it's true. They are taking on Old Trafford. No, it should be at Old Trafford. The fixture's been released. United, again, I think it's for the ninth successive season, are playing at home, which means City are playing away. You can't have it both ways, right? The reason I want to talk about this is everyone is sort of depending on what your point of view. People are either moaning that Arsenal have got this rock-hard start to the season and it's almost like a stitch-up for them, the way they've been given Manchester United, and I think they've got, who else? They've got Liverpool quite early, and they've got Leeds, who've just been promoted as well. And it's like, oh, look at this, the Premier League are already trying to stop Arsenal winning the title. I think, what are you on about? Like that start to the season, right? Yes, you play Manchester United. If you're an Arsenal fan and you think you're being outdone by, the other way you can look at it is you're playing a team that just finished 15th and you're playing a newly promoted team in your first 2 games. It's not that difficult, is it? And also, if you've got ambitions of winning a title, Jesus wept, you should be able to handle that. And also, from a United point of view, we're facing a team that has finished, second the last 3 seasons? So it's not like we're having an easy one. Yes, it's at home, but it's not like we're playing relegation fodder. We're playing arguably the second best team, or at least one of the best teams in the league. So you can't have it both ways. It's just like people like to moan and try and twist this narrative, and it's like, oh, United have had another touch because they've got a home fixture, or Arsenal have been stitched up because they're facing United, but on the other hand, United are rubbish, so it's an easy one for Arsenal. It doesn't make any sense. I just don't get this meltdown that everyone wants to have over the fixtures, and then you have articles sort of acting like there's some sort of conspiracy. Steve M says, I'm glad we're playing Arsenal first. We need to set our stall out right from the start. Smashing Arsenal in our first game would send a strong message. Santa Notch says, FFS, we have 3 top 6 teams in the first few fixtures. The pity party for other clubs is so pathetic. Yeah, I've never got into it. I am Lee Post says, United equals clicks. Akash K says, Jay, shout out to you on the choice of polo shirt. I happen to have one with the exact same colour. Thank you. Sean Taylor says, Rashford to Newcastle. Not happening. Caleb Deterle says, 8-2, smashing again. Yes. Tenzing Sherpa says, good morning, Jay, from Austin. Shout out to all the Texan Reds as well out there. We're going to be back later on today. We have got, I'll tell you what we've got. We've got off the bar. We've got me, McCullough, Joe, Howson, all together on Off the Bar this afternoon. So make sure, if you're not doing so already, you're subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on that. Make sure you are checking that out as well. Hit a like button on this and give it a share as well. I'm Jay Motti. This has been The Paper Talk. Thanks for watching.